Hello Internet, so nice to see you. I've received an interesting question lately, coincidentally from more than one student. And the curious thing about this question is that this question makes complete sense for my students. I can see how when they ask it, it makes complete sense for them, but it doesn't make any sense to me, or at least it does not make any sense to me right now. But, say, 15 years ago, it would have made perfect sense. And as you'll see in a minute, this is a good thing. The question is, if I am finding a scale or chord or anything else on my guitar fretboard, do I find it by searching for the single notes A, B, C, D, E, F, G, etc., or do I find it by using intervals and patterns? You may also notice that I raised a similar question in one of my recent videos about how to learn all the notes on the fretboard. Now, the beginning of what I'm gonna say today may sound obvious to you, but I'm gonna take it to places that are definitely not obvious. So stick with me and you get something interesting by the end of this video. Well, let me give you a first answer by telling you a story. The other day, my 9-year-old daughter asked me, "Dad, do you want a slice of the lemon pie? Or do you want a slice of the chocolate pie?" Well, the answer I gave her to this question and the answer I'm gonna give you guys to the question of the intervals and the notes is the same. It's both, of course. You see, YouTube has a fascination with intervals. It became fashionable to teach the guitar fretboard using intervals, even if most of the time what people mean is not interval, they actually mean scale degrees, but let's gloss over this point right now. It is a useful skill to have. Far from me to say you should not learn your interval. What do I mean, learn your guitar fretboard by intervals? Well, let's say I want to play two notes, G and E. But let's say I'm not a guitar player, I am a piano player. The only way I have to play those two notes on a piano is to find both a G and an E on the keyboard. Let's say I'm not even a piano player, let's say I play some other instrument like saxophone. The only way I have to play those two notes is find the fingering for the G note and then the fingering for the E note and play them one after another. On the guitar, we can do this too. I can find a G note and then an E note and play them one after another. But I can also do this in another way, which is sometimes more musically useful. I can think that the distance between those two notes is a major sixth, and then I can play the pattern for the major sixth interval. This allows me to play the major sixth in different octaves and in different positions. But not only that, this allows me to play the same interval but based on another note. So rather than playing the major sixth based on the G, I can play the major sixth based on the C note. The shape I'm playing is the same. So, we guitar players have this very seductive way of learning the fretboard because for us, whenever we play a scale or a chord, the pattern is the same. When we learn one pattern for the minor pentatonic scale, for instance, then we can reuse this pattern in all keys simply by moving it up and down. When we learn a pattern to play a major chord, we can reuse the same pattern with any other major chord just by moving it up and down the fretboard. Among all the instruments that can play chord, it's practically only us guitar players who can get away from thinking notes and start natively thinking intervals directly on the instrument. That's a great advantage that we have and allow us to do a number of things that are much harder on other instruments. The problem is that we cannot just learn patterns and intervals on our guitar, and if you think about it 5 seconds, you'll see exactly why. It's because even if you know all the patterns for all kinds of intervals and chords and scales, you still have to decide where to play those patterns on the fretboard to get the chord you want. I may have a pattern for a major chord, but the pattern is played differently if it's the C major chord, or the G major chord, or the E major chord, or anything else. So we need to know the notes on our fretboard, if nothing else, to know where to play those patterns. Another option would be to forget about all the patterns and do what every other instrument is doing, meaning let's just learn the notes only. Now that is definitely possible. After all, this is what all the other instruments are doing. But that is closing the door to one of the greatest advantages that our instrument has, that we can think natively in intervals and degrees on the fretboard, as opposed to just think about it. So what am I telling you? That we should learn one and then the other? Well, yes, but this is still not the whole thing. We are still missing a big piece of the puzzle. And the missing piece is that we need an integration of these skills. This is the non-obvious part. You see, one thing is to say just learn one and then learn the other and be done with it. But what we need is a complete integration of those skills. Now, I said before that the question, should I learn one way or the other, does not make any sense to me. Here's the reason. It's because, for me, playing a major sixth by thinking of the pattern, or playing a major sixth by thinking of the notes inside, it's the exact same thing. Meaning, I trained to integrate those two ways of thinking, and now whenever I think of a major sixth starting from G, I'm automatically thinking of G and E, and whenever I think G and E, I'm automatically thinking of a major sixth starting from G. In other words, those two ways of thinking became the same way of thinking in my brain. This is how integration feels. The distinction becomes meaningless to you. The advantage of doing that is that this integration of those two skills, it's both faster and easier to use than either skill alone. It is both easier and faster for me to use both those systems at the same time than limiting myself to only one. I know this sounds strange. When I was writing the script for this video, I was trying to come up with a way to describe this experience of having the integration between those two skills to other people. But I came to the conclusion that I have no way to describe how this feels unless you had this experience too. But what I can show you is how to get there. What I can tell you is that if you get to the point of integrating those two skills, everything feels much easier. You become able to literally find new chord shapes in real time or new scale shapes in real time, because thinking by interval and by notes at the same time allows you to use the best of both worlds without any solution of continuity. So how do you get to the point of integration of those skills? You need to do two things. The first thing you need to do is to learn your note on the fretboard, and I described exactly how in the video that I link on the top right. I suggest you go and see it and then do the exercises there. It's something that takes only 5 minutes a day, and it's well worth the time you put in. The second step, it's even stranger than that. It's a mental exercise that I'm going to explain in a minute that integrates in your mind the notes and the intervals. Now, before I explain this exercise, let me tell you a story. When I was still going to college, I had a long commute between the house I was living in and the college. This is because I was still living with my parents and the campus was in a different city. So every morning I was waking up, walking to the bus stop, waiting for the bus will take me to the train station, there I will catch a train, the train will take me to the other city, and then from the train station in the new city, I will walk down to the campus. And then when I was going back home at the end of every day, I was doing the opposite. Work from the campus to the train station, catch the train, from the train station get the bus, get to the bus stop, and then walk back home. This was a lot of time every day, and I was motivated to do something constructive with this time. When I was sitting down in the bus or the train, I grab a book and study for the midterms or the finals. And when I was working from the train station to the campus, I was talking with my classmates. But when I was waiting for the bus, I was alone, and it wasn't always practical to read a book. So I came up with a series of mental exercises to help me understand music theory. At the time I was just starting studying music theory. And the main thing that was slowing me down in my understanding of music theory was our note naming system, with all the sharps and flat, and the intervals between natural notes are not always the same because we have the half steps in between and all these kind of things. So I came up with a series of mental exercises to eliminate that. Those mental exercises are super easy, anybody can do them. If anything, the problem is that they look too simple, so it's easy to underestimate that. But I can assure you, they will do you a lot of good. So here they are. Exercise number 1. Think of a random interval and a random note. Say, major sixth, from the A note. What is the note a major sixth up from the A note? 3, 2, 1. It's an F sharp. What is the note a tritone above a D note? 3, 2, 1. It's an A flat. The exercise is this. You are simply going to choose a random interval and a random note and calculate the resulting note, meaning the note that is that interval above the note you choose. And you're gonna aim for speed. You want to speed up the process. You want to have the answer in your mind as soon as possible. You are done when the answer comes to your mind without even thinking. That's exercise number 1. Exercise number 2, it's you're gonna mentally ask yourself what is the spelling of a chord. For instance, spell me out an F major. 3, 2, 1. The spelling is F-A-C. If this came immediately to your mind, great, but if you had to think about it, then you need to do this exercise much more. Let's try another one. What is the spelling of G sharp minor? 3, 2, 1. The spelling is G sharp, B, D sharp. Again, you are aiming for speed here. You want to get the answer as fast as possible. If you keep asking yourself those questions in your mind and answering, you'll find that you can speed up a lot those answers, much more than you think it's possible. Exercise number 3, it's the same, but you are spelling scales. So for instance, what are the notes in the G major scale? 3, 2, 1. What are the notes in the F minor scale? 3, 2, 1. Again, you want to aim for speed. You want the answer to simply pop up in your mind. At the beginning, it won't happen, but the more you do it, the more it will happen, until eventually the answer to all those questions will be obvious. Because, let's face it, there are not that many combinations of interval, notes, chords, and scales. Eventually, you're simply going to learn all of them by heart, and you're simply going to know what they are. Even modest gains in these, even a little bit of an improvement in speed, has incredibly large returns on your productivity in music. Even just speeding these up by a mere 10%, which is something you can attain in a few days of practice, will make you a lot more productive because, even if you don't realize, this is what you are thinking most of the time when you are playing something or composing music or improvising or doing other things on your guitar. So, a little bit of an improvement in this basic skill will give you a lot back. This is the thing that slows down most musicians, whether they're composing, improvising, or doing other things. If you speed these up, you get much better. And honestly, you can do this exercise anywhere. You're waiting in line at the supermarket, you can do this. You're waiting for a bus or a train, you can do this. You are on a boring meeting at work or you have another online meeting that you don't care about, you can still do this. I mean, I disclaim every responsibility for telling you this. You choose to do this or not. You are completely on your own if your boss decides to fire you or if your professor gives you an F. But hey, I'm just mentioning the hypothetical possibility. You can use that time to doing something that is actually constructive and useful for you. I really can't recommend this enough. Just try it. Now, if you like these kind of exercises that go beyond just learning theory and go straight into how you can use theory and how later you can apply theory to actually make music, to actually play something on your guitar, to actually compose or rearrange music straight on your guitar fretboard, then I recommend you have a look at the Complete Chord Mastery Guitar course, a course written by guitar players for guitar players that teaches you not only all the little tricks, but also it gives you actual exercises so that you can actually apply everything you learn to actual music, then you are totally going to love Complete Chord Mastery. If you have just a minute, check it out by clicking at the link on the top right. If you like this video, smash on that like button, don't forget to subscribe and click on notification, otherwise YouTube will not let you know when I put up a new video. And if you have any comment, feedback, suggestions, write them down in the comments. I always read my comment, I love reading from you, and I'm making videos based on your suggestions. This is Tommaso Zilio of musictheoryforguitar.com, and until next time, enjoy!